In today's episode of the Virginia Investor Podcast, we have infantry officer in the U.S. Marine Corps serving 9 years and deploying overseas, Maurice Chipp Naylon, who also got out of the military, earned a CPA license, became an asset manager for a commercial real estate development firm, and has since launched his own real estate accounting and development firm and written a book, The Investor's Guide to Real Estate Finance, Accounting, and Tax. I am super excited to get into this conversation. I find, Chipp, your story is fascinating to me at the most surface level, just because of your military background and then becoming an accountant, especially as an infantry officer, and then becoming an accountant. I look forward to really diving into this. I think you'll have so much value to add, especially from your asset management experience with the development firm. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here. We've known each other just around town and through professional relationships for a few years now, so I'm glad to be sitting across the table from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard just everyone that I run into that has done business with you or knows you says wonderful things about you. So I look forward to getting into this and learning more about your background and how you got into all this stuff that you got into. Let's start with you growing up. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and some of the influences you had and what that was like for you. Sure.
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and living now in Richmond. I like to joke that Buffalo will always be home. I'll just probably never live there full time again. So still go up there, see friends and family every Thanksgiving. My wife and I go up there for a month every summer. We had a little girl a couple of years ago, a little boy now, and we realized that these Richmond summers are just too hot to even take newborns out of the house. So I still get up to Buffalo a lot. It shaped who I was. And a lot of my childhood was driven by, and you mentioned the military before, a desire to go to the Naval Academy. So that was a constant throughout my childhood. So I always knew everything I was doing was working towards that, and was extremely fortunate to be accepted there. So I left home at 18 and haven't really been back since, between my Naval Academy time, my time in the Marine Corps, and then moving to Richmond after.
What was the military influence? Did you have family members that were in the military?
None of the immediate next generation. So my dad didn't serve. None of my uncles or aunts served. But I think like a lot of people our age, Grandpa's generation did. So my grandfather served. And then my great uncle, who I'm actually named after, he was Maurice Jr., I'm the fourth, was a naval aviator in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and he was killed over the Philippines. And I think that growing up, hearing his story, planted that seed in my head. So I can't pinpoint exactly when I decided I wanted to go into the military, but it's for as long as I can remember. So I have to speculate that just hearing his story as a young boy planted that seed, and it's just what I wanted to do.
Did you go to the Naval Academy?
I did.
You did? Awesome. And then why the Marine Corps?
So that's kind of and it was confusing for me going in too. I can speak more about it since I've gone through it. The Marine Corps falls under the Department of the Navy. So there's no Marine, or at least college level Marine Corps University like West Point's for the Army or Air Force Academy. So out of the Naval Academy, 20 to 25% of all graduates commission into the Marine Corps. And ironically, I went into the academy not knowing what I wanted to do, but 100% positive I didn't want to be a Marine. And then got there, I met upperclassmen who were going Marines. I met Marine officers serving on campus, and I just realized it was absolutely the path I wanted to go down. The most immediate direct leadership opportunity for basically a kid, 22-year-old in charge of 40, 45 Marines. You're not getting that level of experience and direct leadership that young in really other field.
I could imagine wanting to go in the military growing up your whole life, and then you see just squared away Marines, just absolutely squared away. And it's more of like, how are you going to say no? Like, you want to be a part of that community.
That's exactly right. As a kid, my perception of the Marine Corps was very much shaped by popular culture. So think Full Metal Jacket type situations. And then I realized, yes, there is that craziness, but it's also the leaders I respect most in life were Marines, officer and enlisted.
Right.
Marine Corps has a philosophy, it's called officers eat last. And what that really means is that the higher in rank you are, the less you put your personal needs first and make sure everyone else is taken care of first. And I fell in love with that philosophy when I learned about it, and it just, I'm clearly sitting here with facial hair, so certain elements of the military I put in the rear view, but a lot of who I am today is, it's funny to say an adult, but I guess an adult was shaped by my time in the Marine Corps.
Right. And getting to the Naval Academy is no joke. Like that is a feat in itself. Like what did your, just to get an idea of like what your personality or work ethic was like leading up to that. I assume good grades, sports, other extracurricular activities. Like what kind of things did you do to even make it to the Naval Academy?
All the above. In middle school, I went to public elementary and middle school, and my dad knew that I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. So he said sometime in middle school, Chip, if you want to get in, you have to go to Canisius, is a Jesuit prep school up in Buffalo. So you got to go there for your grades, study habits. And so I made that decision, really working towards the Naval Academy. And that high school experience set me up for success. Played lacrosse, football, basketball there. Learned what time management was. Learned very much that actions have consequences. If you don't do your work, you suffer accordingly. And that really put me on the path. And going there helped. But it's still, you need a congressional appointment. So spending time volunteering in the community and outreach to different local representatives, it all played into the path of getting to the Naval Academy. And I wanted it so badly that that was the only place I applied, which in retrospect was probably a rash decision. And I like to joke that had I not gotten in, I'd probably be tending bar at a hostel in Bali right now. But fortunately, I got in and went there, played rugby at the academy, commissioned into the Marine Corps, and that set me on the path I am now.
What year did you go to the Naval Academy?
Started in 2005 and graduated in 2009.
All right, so September 11th had already happened. What did your parents think about your commitment to the military even after that, knowing that you would go to war?
Yeah, I'll start with when I decided to play football in high school. Mm-hmm. It was something my mom absolutely didn't want me playing football, but she stepped back, said, I am not going to try to intervene. And it was the same thing with the military, but more specifically the Marine Corps. It's tough on a mom. It's very tough on the mom. The 7 months in Afghanistan, I don't know if she slept the whole time, but anytime we talked on the phone, very upbeat. When I finally FaceTimed her, when I got back to Kuwait flying home, she broke down in tears. So it's tough on families, but they also knew that it's truly what I wanted to do, and I would be doing who I am a disservice if I didn't pursue that route.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that's who you are, that your identity growing up is like you're going to serve in the military. And as hard as it is on parents, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to not allow your child to have that service and make that sacrifice that they feel drawn to make?
Yeah, and it means more to me now that I'm a parent of two kids.
I bet.
But I had one of my close buddies who I played rugby with at Navy, and he was a Navy EOD officer. He had kids before I did, and his philosophy is, as a parent, be a gardener, not an architect.
Yep.
So facilitate growth, but don't constrain that growth. And I think my parents did a wonderful job of that, of giving me opportunities, encouraging me, but letting me carve my own path as well.
You're an officer going into the Marine Corps. Why did you choose infantry officer, or is that just how it's sorted out?
Yep.
And then what was that experience like when you actually entered into the Marine Corps? Do you go to officer candidate school and not, like, how does that work when you're entering?
So coming out of the Naval Academy, I did not go to officer candidate school. If I went through a different commissioning route, I would have gone through OCS. But the Naval Academy, you go right from graduating. Typically, you would go right to what's called the basic school, which is the 6-month officer school up in Quantico. But I had a deferred service. I graduated and then went to grad school for a year and a half.
Interesting.
And then from there, went right into the basic school. So it's 6 months of basic officer training. About the midway mark, you put in your preferences for what you want to do. And I selected infantry as my first choice, was fortunate to get it. So that led to 3 months of follow-on infantry officer course up in Quantico, which I say is the best worst time I never want to have again. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievable training. You don't sleep the whole time. You're pretty much outside the whole time, but you leave there confident you can storm the gates of hell, basically.
That's awesome.
Like I said, never want to go through it again.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable sleeping in beds now, but it was a tremendous, tremendous experience.
Right. And something you can probably look back on for perspective. Yep. Like when you put yourself through really hard things, or when other people put you through really hard things, you can use that perspective when you have a challenge in life. And I think some people who don't go through those sort of challenges lack that perspective. And when you have challenges in life, I think it's good to have things like that to reflect on.
Absolutely. Perspective is a great word to describe it. Stressful situations, and I'm human, I get stressed, I get overwhelmed, but then you take a step back and say, well, at the end of the day, it's not so bad.
Right. There was a prisoner of war, Paul Galante. Okay. I was so happy I didn't forget his name. Paul Galante. He was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and he is, I don't know if he's based out of Richmond. He might be, or maybe somewhere in Virginia, but he's often in Richmond. Mm-hmm. And he goes to like the like different museums and stuff like that, like remembrance museums and everything. I think there's one on Belle Isle, and I'm butchering.
We have the War Memorial here. Which is
that's
incredible.
it. Yeah, that's it. And sorry, I'm butchering the name of it, but yes, the War Memorial. And that's actually where I talked to him. So I met him there, and I said something dumb. I didn't know what to say. I was nervous, but I said something like, "How you doing?" And so anyway, his response was something along the lines of, "I woke up this morning and there was a doorknob on the inside." Yep. And he's like, "Every day that happens, it's a great day." Yep. And it was just in perspective, right? I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, I think he was a prisoner of war, again, don't quote me on this, but it's like 7 years, 5 years or something like that, in horrible conditions. But anyway, that sort of perspective is just incredible. So what was your Marine Corps experience like? I mean, you get through the basic schooling and then you're off to deployments. And
yeah, my first infantry battalion, I was stationed out at Camp Pendleton in Southern California. So 3 years there. I did a first deployment to Okinawa, so a non-combat deployment where we were based in Okinawa, but then got aboard ship. We did training in Thailand, training up in South Korea. So really cool experience, kind of that old saying, join the Navy, see the world. So definitely got to see the world. Got back from that deployment and got selected to be a combat advisor for what's called an individual augmentee program. So they basically farm out people from different units to form an ad hoc team. And we went over to the Republic of Georgia for 3 months, embedded with a battalion of soldiers over there, and then deployed with them to Afghanistan to serve as their U.S. advisors in Afghanistan. So that was a pretty wild experience. The silver lining was we got some leave between Georgia and Afghanistan. My then girlfriend flew over from California, met me in Montenegro. We got engaged and got married after that deployment and just hit 10 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. And that's not easy, going through the military deployments and staying married.
No. So, it worked out well. And then I had a final 3 years in the Marine Corps. It's called a shore tour, where I taught amphibious planning down in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
That was a really cool experience because it was a slower pace, but it also exposed me to, we did a ton of training down in South America. So we'd go down and advise South American Marine Corps on amphibious planning. So being able to travel on Uncle Sam's dime down to Rio and Lima, Peru, got to Bogota, Colombia, that was another different side of the Marine Corps that was just an eye-opening experience. And I'm a firm believer in the educational value of both travel, and especially travel and spending time with people from other cultures. Right. And that also got me back on the East Coast. So when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2018, wife and I weren't sure where we were going to go. We spent a long weekend in Richmond, loved it, and said, this is the new place. So that's 7 years
ago
easy.
Now.
Yep.
That easy, huh?
Yep.
Why did you choose to get out?
A variety of issues. I was at the 9-year mark, 20-year retirement. If I did another 3 years, I'm at 12, and then it's kind of may as well stay in at 20. So that was part of it. It was the right time to get out. I checked the boxes I wanted to. Definitely had some heartburn about my experiences and frustrations with my time in Afghanistan. That was the impetus for writing that book. So a variety of reasons, get out, and you mentioned how tough it is on families. I knew my wife and I eventually wanted to have kids. There are absolutely people in the service who successfully raised families while still active duty. I just didn't want to do that, and it was just the right time to get out, and as we started looking towards the next chapter, eventually having kids, it just made sense.
What is the name of your book that you wrote about Afghanistan?
The New Ministry of Truth, and the subtitle is Combat Advisors in Afghanistan and America's Great Betrayal. So obviously not a happy topic,
Right.
but I was just extremely frustrated with my time over there with what I saw a failure for our policymakers to define a clear political objective that could be achieved by the military means that we committed. So I saw a lot of wasted blood and treasure and just a lot of frustration with, and it was absolutely bipartisan, multiple presidential administration, multiple Congresses just failing to take ownership of why we were there and what the goals were.
And then what year was the pullout?
It was in 01.
No,
Or excuse me, 21.
21. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that probably, you wrote the book before that.
Yeah, I wrote it in 2019. So, and it just kind of unfortunately validated everything I'd written.
Right. So yeah, for anyone who's listening, get that book, check it out if you're interested in that. There's definitely many different aspects to your experience in your life, and I think it's cool how all this, like, how you have so many different perspectives and experiences and things like that.
Yeah, I joke around that still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah, you'll figure it out someday.
I somewhat tongue-in-cheek say the mile wide, inch deep, but I like doing a lot of things,
Right.
and I also find Office Space to be the horror genre because the idea of being locked down in a rut terrifies me.
Yeah.
So I just like being able to kind of do my own thing, and that leads a variety of different directions. And after the military, real estate just made sense.
Yeah, I kind of feel you there. Like, I have a fear that I won't experience enough in life. Like, I actually, this is probably bad to say, but after my first property management conference, like, I'm not big on conferences. Like, I will study what's happening around the nation and bring that back to my team. And I encourage my team to study way outside of our company to learn best practices and bring it back. But I'm not big on going to, like, the hoorah national property management conferences, but I went to one a couple years ago, and people are like, what was your takeaway? It was your first conference, and it was that I don't want to be a property management guy. Like, I don't want this to define my life, and there were a lot of people there that were like lifelong. They are known for being property management guys, and there's nothing wrong with being a very successful property manager, having a very successful company in any industry, but I don't want that to define me, and I don't want that to be my only professional experience or adult experience or anything like that. And so I've worked in the motorcycle industry, I've been in the fitness industry, I've spent years working alongside military folks, and that's been some of the best times of my life. Now I just happen to be in property management, have an awesome company, I'm enjoying it, but there's a bunch of other stuff I'd like to experience as well. So I'm kind of on the same page there.
Yeah, and you see it with real estate a lot because there's a tremendous overlap between real estate investing and, I mean, it's a buzzword, but this whole FIRE movement about people retiring early with financial independence. And I am a firm believer, and I'm not going to claim that I'm smart enough to be the person who said this, but somebody smarter than I, before you do anything considering retirement, be able to define that first day you're not working, what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Right.
And if you define yourself by what you do, then why retire?
Right.
So there's got to be some greater purpose. And for me, real estate is a means to an end. It's not an end of itself. I want to continue volunteering at the VFW, want to spend time with my family, I want to travel, see friends.
Right.
And that's why I'm in real estate. Not because I love real estate, but just with my background and the way the cookies crumbled, I saw it as a relatively quick way to get to the financial freedom to do the things I truly want to do in life.
Yeah, it's a vehicle to give you what you really want out of life. So you leave the military and you went to school for accounting directly, or was there kind of what guided that?
A few parts to this question. First, in undergrad, I studied international relations. Graduate school, right after I left the Naval Academy, before I started my Marine training, I went to school for security studies, so terrorism and sub-state violence. So nothing I'd done academically had anything to do with the business world. But that time in grad school, I also used the VA loan to buy my first townhouse. And then throughout my time in the military, just kept buying single-family homes to rent out. I just inherently understood the value in having somebody else pay my mortgage to get towards that financial freedom that I was seeking. So I knew that I was interested in real estate while I was in the Marine Corps, and I wanted to, quote unquote, do real estate when I got out. I just didn't know what doing real estate meant. I'm not comfortable with sales, so I didn't want to do the broker thing. I could barely turn a light bulb. Construction probably wasn't it. But my dad's a financial planner, and something he said growing up stuck with me, that accounting is the language of business. So I just kind of had one of those light bulb moments where I still had some life left on my GA or GI Bill for going to school. So I enrolled in a bachelor's in accounting and then a master's in accounting. And as I was transitioning out, realized, okay, this is a way into real estate. And I still wasn't sure how that would work, but just by happenstance, we got up to Richmond. I was substitute teaching, didn't have a full-time job, and I saw an asset management accountant position listed. I applied for it, got the job, and that took me from very amateurish single-family home renter, managing my own properties, to understanding the nuts and bolts of commercial real estate. So that really opened up the door and exposed me to the broader real estate world.
And you had this, and you went straight into that development firm, right?
Yep.
Like, you didn't have any background in asset management. In fact, did you have your CPA yet? Nope. And so they took a risk on you. They 100%. Saw something in you to say, he's going to come on and he's going to help. He's going to be an asset manager for all this new development that we're doing. Why do you think they took that risk on you?
So this will go partially to the advice I give to anyone getting out of the military. There's this, I hate to say arrogance, but somewhat arrogance of mid-career professionals or retirees getting in the military and think, well, I was in charge of 500 people in the military, I should be the CEO of this company. When in reality, we have no experience in the outside world. So what I did is looked at a position where I wasn't competing against other mid-career professionals. I was applying for an entry-level out of college position. Yep. So yes, they took a risk on me, but really it was a accountant right out of college, or an accountant right out of college with 10 years of military life and real estate investing experience. So I'll tell anyone willing to listen, if you're that confident in your abilities, just get your foot in the door. Get an entry-level job, and then once your foot's in the door, you'll get your chance to prove yourself. Right. And so in some respect, they took a risk on me, but in others, it was like, well, it just kind of makes sense because it's the same level of educational background, just significantly more life experience with it.
That actually, you put it that way, and it's an absolute layup for that company to find someone like you, because you do, like, the entry level, you take the risk on having no life experience, and then also on your part, like, you're saying, like, you're betting on yourself, and you're taking this entry level, kind of humbly taking this entry level job.
Took about a 50% pay cut.
Exactly.
I was a captain in the Marine Corps, getting out with a housing allowance, but I wasn't too concerned because I was looking at it as I was getting paid, even if it was entry level pay, to learn real estate.
Right. Yeah. Tuition. Yeah. So
at the feet of some of the best practitioners in the state. Right. So it was.
That's a great mindset to have. And there's so many people, like, I will see some awesome, incredible developers, a couple of which have been on this podcast already, post job listings. And they're like, hey, $75,000, come be my in-house property manager, come do this or come do that. And I'm like, anyone, you have 10,000, 20,000 followers. You should be getting 5,000 applicants. Right. Like, anyone who's trying to understand, come work for you. Mm-hmm. And you get a front row seat to everything they're doing. And I don't understand why people don't just quit whatever you're doing if this is where you can go do it. But you had an awesome mindset where, like, you were willing to take that cut, and that cut would be like tuition, right? Your tuition payment in my mind. But you were willing to do that. But it sounds like you also know that there are so many people that want to put the money before accomplishment. Like, they have to get paid a certain amount or they're not doing it because they know their worth. You were like, I know my worth, and I know this pay is under my worth, so I'm going to show up and I'm going to show them what I'm worth, and then they're going to pay me that much. And of course, like, you were more looking at it from an educational standpoint, but there are many people that I see that will just show up whether they're getting paid less, and they know that they will outwork that payment. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is if they truly do outvalue their salary, that employer is forced to pay them more, or else you're going to leave and you're going to go get paid way more somewhere else with that experience that you have.
Yep.
And so that employer will absolutely pay you more in what you're worth, or else you're free on the market.
Yep.
So that's cool that you had that mindset where you're like, well, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be worth it, and I'll get paid more and I'll get the experience as well.
Yep. And I got to give a plug to my wife here too. I also had the flexibility to do that because she had a good job working
Right.
remotely and having a partner who can balance that out. And right now, working for myself, yeah, I have fee income coming from clients, but also my own developments. That's a long lead time. So being able to balance a spouse's W-2 for the bills now with my slower burn development work helps a ton,
Right.
especially now that we have kids as well. It's made it easier having a solid team at home, for
Right.
lack of better terms.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do it without a solid team, because if you have kids, I think one of the
With
most
kids, it'd be tough. If
one
I
of
was
the
just on my own,
right. Yeah, because kids, I kind of joke and say it's hard to go live in a van with kids.
That's right.
But like if you were on your own, like you
I mean, I've slept in the dirt enough. I could do it. Not that I wanted to, but I
Right.
could do it.
Right. So you had a front row seat at development now. What did that look like when you got in that seat, started working? What kind of things were you seeing? What kind of deals were they working on?
Yeah, the company I worked was a umbrella company that had a property management wing, a GC, a development side, and then also in-house architect. So really the full spectrum of commercial real estate. So if I had questions about any aspects of a deal, and they focused on historic tax credit investing, which I kind of liken it to, I mean, it's PhD level accounting, PhD level development. It's a lot more moving pieces, the deal financing and legal agreements up front, the compliance with state and federal regulations, super intense. And being able to ask questions to anyone in the office, and a lot of places pay lip service to the open door policy. We're like, yeah, come ask me questions, but they don't really mean it. This was
awesome.
quite literally an open door place where if I want to talk to a superintendent, a project manager, the architect, our director of operations on the property management side, or one of the principals about structuring the deals, I could. And that's a lot of the reason why I had the confidence to go out on my own, was because I said, hey, Chipp, we'd be happy to, we know you want to do your own thing. We'd be happy to be your mentor. So having that backstop of people I know, like, say, hey, you've been in this for 25 years. You've probably seen a situation like this. What do you recommend? It gives you a tremendous amount of confidence knowing that you can fall back on that.
Was it mostly multifamily, like larger multifamily assets?
Predominantly mixed use. So picture a old building that's renovated with historic tax credits. So top floor or outbuilding, multifamily, and then commercial space. And as an asset management accountant there, I was responsible for really the portfolio lifecycle accounting for the stabilized properties. So monthly accounting and investor relations, so putting together the monthly report packages, the annual budgeting process, putting together tax packages for each one of the underlying LLCs in the spring of every year. So really saw the full spectrum of the accounting and finance side of the house over there.
Did you do any of the acquisition side of like the pro formas and things like that?
Only because I wanted to. So over there, the principal, one of the principals is responsible for the finance side of the house, one for the GC side of the house. The principal leading finance is the one driving pro forma development and acquisition, with the CFO doing some work as well. So if I had spent a couple of years working there and never looked at a pro forma, I could have. But I basically said, give this to me, give this to me, give this to me. So even though I wasn't taking lead on it, they brought me into the process. This is how I build a pro forma. These are the considerations. So that went back to getting my foot in the door to learn as much as possible. I sought out that knowledge. And even though I wasn't the one driving new acquisitions, I got to have the passenger seat for that because I asked to learn.
Right. And typically when people are looking at acquisitions, they're also looking at exit strategies at the same time. So you get to see when they're doing acquisitions, you get to see how they're underwriting the exit, potential exit or hold periods, or what the values are and reasoning behind that. So you get the full scope. And arguably, obviously acquisition is very important in the underwriting of the numbers and purchase prices and construction costs and everything. But the operational I think that's where a lot of people get thrown off of like the operational expenses and what that actually looks like on a per unit basis or with the credits and everything. I mean, that can get really complicated.
Yeah, and the bulk of what I do is deal underwriting and financial analysis. And I talk to friends and family, like, hey, I'm thinking of investing this deal as an LP. Do you mind taking a look at the pro forma? I would always tell people there are two huge red flags, well, I guess 2.5 red flags in a pro forma from somebody trying to syndicate capital. One is overly ambitious rent escalations. So somebody saying, yeah, we're going to escalate at 10% a year. It's going to look, any pro forma look good. Similarly, if you see operating expenses modeled to grow at a lower rate than rent, that's another kind of red flag. So that's that half of one.
Right.
And then the other one is exit cap rates. So if people say, yeah, this is going to be a 3% exit cap rate, of course the deal is going to look phenomenal.
Right.
So I say, if you look at nothing else, just understand how to find what are their assumptions on rent and expense growth and what's their exit cap rate assumption. Because any deal in the world can look like a golden goose if you fluff those numbers.
Right. Would you typically advise in today's world, like stick to a 3% income and expense, over the years, and then how would you? I guess you would value the exit cap rate based on the forced appreciation that happens to the asset. Like if you buy it at a 10 and 8 or a 10 cap because it's distressed and needs all this work, or it's not even developed yet, then you assume you would exit at a cap rate of today's current value. So like if that asset would generally trade at a 6 cap, then you would assume a 6 cap at exit.
So two parts to that. One, the data exists. So companies like CoStar have that cap rate data, and that's something that's always tough for people jumping from residential to commercial is there aren't comps in the commercial world.
Right.
But a cap rate effectively is a comp where it might be a 10-unit apartment building versus a 30-unit one, but if they're similar locations, similar age, similar tenant profile, they should have comparable cap rates. So those cap rates exist, not speculatively, but what CoStar says they are. So if you're also looking at a 10-year project, none of us know what it's going to look like.
Right.
So the CPA in me takes an overly cautious approach to underwriting a deal, where I am always going to assume and model a higher cap rate, so a lower exit value. And then the way to look at it is if I have investors banking on the worst case scenario, anything above that's gravy. But I don't want to be in a position where I have to tell an investor, hey, sorry, I got a little aggressive with this modeling, and you're actually taking a fraction of the exit proceeds that I modeled. So that's what I'll tell anyone willing to listen. And it's partially the conservatism of being a CPA, but under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, especially when you're raising other people's money.
That's right.
Yeah. How long were you with that development firm? A couple years?
2 years. Let's see, was really only about a year and a half where I was a full-time employee, and then left, got my CPA, and my wife and I took a year off to travel. So we said, we want to have kids. I traveled a ton in the military. We want a year to travel. So we both did freelance work. She contracted for a company, got back from that, and then got pulled back in on a contract basis for another year. An accountant had left, and then we had our little girl. I left, got pulled back in. So all in all, I've been there about 5 years.
Awesome.
And that's only because I tremendously respect them. And they said, look, hey, Chip, can you help out? Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah, and they knew you were interested in doing your own thing, that's such an awesome relationship to have, where they respect you enough to allow you the freedom to do your own thing, but also like you're helping them. Like it doesn't have to be this adverse, we're not 100% all in, then you're not on the team. Like I appreciate that dynamic, that they respect your goals and your ambitions, but also like you can still work together.
Yeah, and I'm all for radical transparency. In my initial job interview, they asked what I wanted from the job, and I said financial freedom. I don't want to be working for somebody else, so I was very upfront about that. And then I also, especially in a town like Richmond, but really any town, it's too small a town to burn bridges.
Yeah.
So when my wife and I set this plan to leave, I gave 3 months notice. Awesome. I said, I am going to be here until we've hired and I've trained my replacement. because I don't want them leaving and then my friends and coworkers over there having to pick up my slack. So I gave a very long lead time on leaving, and my boss, he knew it was coming. He knew that was my goal from my initial interview, but I also had 3 months to help them hire my replacement and then train that replacement.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I will have interviews here quite frequently where people say, I want to be financially independent. I want to invest in real estate. And I look at that, and I used to look at that as a red flag, where it's like, well, sweet, okay, so you're going to be here, you're going to get data, you're going to learn, you're going to get all the connections that we have, and then you're going to leave. And then I very quickly started looking at it as, awesome, let me help you. Like, if you come in and you have that mindset, you're going to understand how to care for people's investment property. If that's what you're interested, you're going to understand why these people are investing in property and why we need to manage it a certain way, because this is what a lot of their goals are. And so if you understand the aspect of financial independence or financial freedom, we can help our clients get there. And then through this company and through the relationships and opportunities, then I hopefully can help you get there. And then if I do a good job as an employer, you're still going to want to roll with our team and roll with our company and help us if I'm serving you appropriately. Because if you're having a good time at your job and you really respect and appreciate the team and you're buying investment assets, it doesn't mean you have to quit. I mean, eventually they might, but it also takes a while to get financial independence, right? And so I figured, if you get 5-10 years out of someone and they're really loyal and you're helping them create generational wealth for their own family, and they understand exactly what your investors are looking for because they want to do it too, it's not so bad.
Yeah, and I looked at this from an asset management account perspective, but the same applies to property managers, where when you're putting together a quarterly or monthly report for third-party stakeholders in some deal, when you're putting that report together, use the mindset, I own this property. What do I want to know about it? Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing with property management. Treat every property as if you own it, and you're going to be a good property manager.
Right. Yeah, it's not that much more complicated.
I guess it's like applying the golden rule to business.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So when you went off and you eventually went off and did your own thing, like started your own firm, what's the name of the firm?
Waludas Capital.
And then how'd you come up with that name?
Waludas was the court that my first townhouse was on.
Oh,
so
cool.
It was kind of like a nod to the beginning of the program. And I can't tell you how disastrous that first purchase was. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a 23-year-old kid. Just knew that I had the VA loan. Like, hey, this is something where I think I can get a house. And the first night I'd closed and moved in, I think I was sleeping on the floor. I don't think even in a mattress. And I looked out the window at about 3 a.m. and my car was gone. And I thought it had been stolen. Apparently, in the property documents, there were parking passes.
Oh, nice.
Didn't hang a parking pass, so night one of being a first-time homeowner, my car got towed.
Awesome. I
named the company Waludas as kind of a nod to those less than auspicious origins in the real estate world.
Yeah, similar to what we were talking about before we started recording, like walking in here. Like, first desk was, filing cabinets and a piece of plywood. And I wish I still had that piece of plywood today. Like,
it would be cool
to have it. Yeah, it'd be cool to have it. But so what was it like going out on your own and starting your own firm?
I get frustrated with snake oil salesmen, and it's gotten even worse with TikTok influencers. There are a lot of people who sell these, make $1 gazillion in real estate with no money. Have people done that? Sure. Is that realistically the way that it's going to work? Probably not. When you're getting into development, you need some capital. I say need. It's easier if you have some capital. So throughout my time in the Marine Corps, built a portfolio of single-family homes, and then as I was deciding to go out on my own, started selling those off, and that became my seed capital. So when my wife and I got back from our year abroad, I said, all right, now's the time to really get into this. It helped knowing that I wasn't beholden to investors and I had the capital to pursue the right deal when it came across the desk. So having some cash that you control, that you're not beholden to somebody else's minimum required returns, made it a lot easier. But the first thing I did, and I think that's how we actually connected, was I spent several months just building the team. So GC, architect, and the one we connected on, it's an interesting case study in how with the development world, as you spend a couple of years entitling a property, the macroeconomic environment can change. Macroeconomic environment can change, because I bought a infill lot that I entitled to build 20 townhouses. And the original model was build to rent. I bought it at about 2.5% interest rates, entitled it at about 6.5 or 7. So clearly the build to rent didn't pencil, didn't move forward with that, but was able to sell it to a builder who used Henrico's new affordable housing trust to put together awesome affordable housing products in an unaffordable part of town. And that was extremely rewarding to me. Even though I wasn't the one who got across the finish line, I spent 2 years entitling a deal, first solo deal. It was definitely, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball situation. Right. Everything that went or could go wrong did. Wetland and stream mitigation credits, easements from neighbors, very tough topography and the parcel. But it was 2 years where my wife and my saving was tied up into it, so the buck stopped with me. Right. So it was absolute real estate you. If this deal was going to get across the finish line, it was only because of the work I would be able to do.
Right.
So ended up not being able to move forward with you guys because I sold it before building and stabilizing, but it was 2 years of absolute real estate you. Sold it, still made some money, and just learned more in 2 years being the only one responsible for it than if I'd spent 5 years working for somebody else.
Right.
Because I'm still a firm believer that until you own it, you're not going to take all the lessons away.
Right. Yeah. And you were carrying all of that burden to get that to where you got it, to where you could sell it.
There were a lot of 3 a.m. wake ups of,
right.
Oh my God, is this deal going to stop? And my acquisition soft costs are just gone. But
yeah, and when you, like you said, when you bought it, you were like 2.5%.
Yeah.
And then I guess when you were selling it or something like later on, we were in the 6s, 7s.
Once I received approved permits a year and a half to 2 years later. So anyone who thinks that the development world is going to be a quick process, it's not. The interest rate environment had completely changed. Right. And going back to my financial modeling background, the numbers just don't lie.
Right.
It said this no longer is viable as a build to rent project.
What was going through your head when you're looking at the numbers as the interest rates start climbing and you're reworking your financial models? What are you thinking?
So I won't use the full phrase here because this is a family show, but we have a saying in the Marine Corps, FITFO, figure it the F out.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was. This sucks, but I'm going to have to figure it out.
And what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like you could throw a fit.
That's right.
You could cry, you could do whatever, but
there was nothing I could do to change that aspect of things. All I could control was A, getting it permitted, and then B, figuring out some way to exit where I still make a little cash.
Yeah, coming up with that's what a lot of us need to do, is just focus on a solution. Like, stop making excuses, stop worrying about it. Like, it might suck where you're at and you might be in a really bad scenario, but you just got to figure it out.
That's right.
That's the only outcome.
One of the best pieces of advice, it was an old company commander of mine in the Marine Corps told me, was when you're working for somebody else, bring them solutions, not problems.
Right.
So too many people like to drop their problems on their boss, their manager's desk and say, like, this is the problem.
Right.
Instead, change the mentality of, all right, this is a problem. Here are a few solutions. I think this is the best one. And you put those solutions on the table. And then your boss is going to make the decision, but you bring them solutions and let them make a decision.
Did you have any outside real estate professionals that you were working with that added immense value for you to help you through this process?
My civil engineer, Stig Owens from Seekiv Solutions, is an absolute rock star. And I thank him in the acknowledgments in my book. I mean, and that was part of me assembling my development team back in 22. Everyone I interviewed, I say interviewed, that's too formal a word. Everyone I sat down and had coffee or beer with to see if we could work together, I said, I am looking at this as my education.
Right.
So you are obviously a subject matter expert in whatever it is you're doing, but I want to work with somebody who's willing to educate me in the process. Right. And Stig was that guy. But I mean, without his creative civil engineering approaches to very tough terrain, understanding of the entitlement and permit process within Henrico County, it would have been far more challenging.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer, nobody in the development world has all the answers. Not one person can be, I mean, maybe that one person exists, I don't think, can be the numbers guy, the civil engineer, the architect, the GC, the lawyer. You need a team. And once you kind of swallow your pride and realize, I don't have to know anything, I just have to surround myself with people who do, everything in life gets so much easier.
Yeah, I agree, because you're not going to know everything. I mean, you will move too slowly and not accomplish enough if you need to be the expert at everything. And you just have to have some level. I've talked to local property management company owners in this market that are like, I'm trying to get past 100 doors. Like, what? And I'm like, you need to start hiring people, or, maybe not 100 doors, but like 200,
Whatever
300 doors. You need to start hiring. And they're like, I've tried. I just can't trust anyone. I'm like, well, it's going to be really hard to scale that company if you won't find, one person you trust, or put the right process systems, but let them play in the right sandbox or something, like some sort of guidelines. But that ability to build that team, and I'll tell you, like, I still remember our meeting, where we were and where we sat and everything. And I meet with a lot of people, and I think what I really appreciated was your communication and your transparency, where you essentially said what you just said. And you said, look, I'm building my team. I don't know everything. I'm relying on you as a subject matter expert. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm trying to do. Here's the impact we're trying to make. This is some help I'm likely going to need. Here's some things I'm really good at. And I have a soft spot for working with anyone who served in the military. But outside of that, I really appreciated your, it was like there was a discipline to it that I really remembered, and I was like, man, he would be a good partner to have.
Very kind words, and I significantly appreciate it, and life is long. Hopefully we'll be able to work together on another deal soon enough. For
sure. With your accounting knowledge, how can investors learn to work with lenders better? Like, do you have any advice on how investors can use the accounting to do better when they're building their capital stack or working with lenders?
Shameless plug, but the reason I wrote this book is to answer that question. I had the same conversations over and over and over with friends, family, clients, and the biggest mistake I see is people see, and usually they're more grandiose developments, not just buying a single family home, but somebody like, this huge parcel of land, I'm gonna do this, do that. And they have this beautiful slide deck telling this great story, and there are no numbers attached to it. You just need to know how to build a pro forma. And what frustrated me is that I think, like a lot of industries, people get protective about industry knowledge, and underwriting a deal, that term underwriting has so much mystery to it.
Right.
It's not mysterious. All you're doing is putting into a spreadsheet or some model numbers to say, do the future cash flows justify the acquisition costs, the build, the operating expenses, the debt? And they either do or they don't. And what I was amazed with, starting with building a portfolio of single family homes, when you apply for a single-family home mortgage right now, it's like applying to the CIA. Closing documents, 300 pages, verifying, hey, you sold a piano 10 years ago. I saw, where did that cash come from? I want a receipt. I was blown away. The first commercial deal I closed in, closing package was about 20 pages. It was the easiest process because I understood how to build a pro forma. The lender looked at it, verified my assumptions. Okay, the numbers work. You're approved for this loan. So people just have to understand how lenders approve loans. So on the personal side, whether that's a debt to income and loan to value test, or in the commercial world where you're looking at debt service coverage ratio versus loan to value and what your max loan is going to be constrained by those two tests, lenders don't want complicated stuff. They just want something that shows, yes, the numbers work.
Right.
And that's what I feel like I've broken down and I include a lot of models in that. And I intentionally include links at the bottom. People can download them for free. Not trying to keep anything secret. So any screenshots of models in the book, go to the website, download them, because it doesn't have to be challenging. You just learn, okay, this is the model. Yes, it shows the costs are justified by future cash flows, or no, they're not. And that's really it. And then with a commercial loan, you just show that to the lender. They may have a specific template they want you adjusting, and usually you can just poach data from the rest of your pro forma and put it on a cover sheet, and then it's, all right, yes, this works. You're approved because you meet our loan to value and DSCR requirements.
I've even had lenders that want me to fill out this really complicated spreadsheet. I'm like, just take a look at this one and see if you'll accept this one. They're like, okay, that's good enough. And I'm like, well, just save me 20 hours from converting everything. Now, I have to admit, I have several of your models saved on my laptop. And just this morning, I was using one to work on a 56 unit opportunity. I think earlier this week, I was looking at an 18 unit opportunity, and it was the multifamily model. And then I brought over, you have an equity calculator, and I brought that over, and it's awesome.
That warms
and
my
it's
soul.
simple.
Absolutely
it's simple
warms my soul.
And it's awesome. And you just type in a few numbers, everything starts to populate. You can play with it and say like, well, if this was the purchase price, or this is the DSCR, or this is the amortization period, or anything, it's just all the numbers just populate, and then you can go and see the waterfall at the end and see what that looks like.
There are a million different ways to create a pro forma. Some wildly complicated, some really just back of the napkin. But at the end of the day, the underlying logic of any pro forma is the same.
Yeah.
I'm speaking in terms of income properties. Build to sell, you're going to have different models. But if you are looking to build to rent or acquire to rent a stabilized property, the underlying logic is all the same.
Right.
And the flow, and that's why I label the different tabs of the pro forma you're talking about with step 1, step 2, because it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
Now, you still have to know where to find that reliable information.
Right.
If you're underwriting $2,000 per unit, but the market supports $1,500, I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
But the underlying logic of the model is all the same, regardless of how simple or complicated it is.
That's why I really appreciate what you've put together, because we get all the time where investors, some institutional funds will come to us and they'll be looking at a $30 million purchase. They'll send me their asset manager's pro forma, and I can't read it. And I almost don't know how to say that to them, where I'm just like, I'm staring at this for 30 minutes trying to figure out what this is even telling me, because it's so complicated. And I'm like, it doesn't need to be this complicated. It's just like everything just looks like it's in a different language. And then there are some buyers that will send me pro formas. I'm like, thank you. All right, I see exactly what they're getting at and exactly what they're saying. And the models that you have are very easy to follow and understand, and it serves the same purpose.
And that was ultimately the goal. And when you download one of those, you can tweak it, but it gives you a framework.
Yeah.
I remember when I heard the term underwriting for the first time, I was a deer in the headlights. I had no idea what that meant. It doesn't have to be mysterious. It's just, like I said, I mean, do the future cash flows justify the costs? And that's all your deal underwriting is.
You know, one thing I was upset about, though, is when I clicked the link, as this is the business person coming out at me, you didn't even ask for my email.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to put in any
I
didn't have to give you any of my information, and you just provided all of this value.
I know. I'm in some respects a terrible businessman. Where I want to be over at the VFW drinking beers with buddies, coaching Little League. I mean, people have the information.
Right.
If they want to reach out to me, they can book a consultation on there. But I just wanted to give people the tools, and
that's
make some money on the book sales, hopefully get some consultation bookings from it. But at the end of the day, I mean, the impetus for this was I just had these conversations so many times, and I like writing. So it was a project that I had on the side for the past few years. And
I'll tell you, I mean, you know this, and I've learned this over the years, is like the more value you can add, the more, even if you expect nothing in return, the more it comes back to you. So I really appreciate it. I joke when I say you didn't ask for the email, but even though I would recommend it, I think it's awesome that, like, what value can you get today randomly online where you don't have to give up some of your data and anything? So I went to the link, I clicked it, and I was more than prepared to write in my name, an email, phone number, and all this, and it's boom, spreadsheet downloaded. Yeah. And I'm like, holy cow, this is all built out exactly as it says it is in the book, and aligned with the graphics that you lay out to say, this is what your input should be, and this is what I'm talking about, and you see the same thing on the spreadsheet, sort of like an instruction manual. So talking about the book, all right, so the book, again, is called Real Estate Finance, Accounting, and Tax. Hold it up for the camera to see, and we'll upload a photo as well. The chapters, just to read these out real quick, and you guys will get a good idea of the content of the book after I read these chapters. So there's 7 chapters. There's some more information in there as well, some great information about you and your story. But the chapters themselves, chapter 1, you're tired of renting, buy a home. Chapter 2, you have a spare bedroom, make some money renting it out. Chapter 3, you're moving, convert your primary residence into a rental property. It's awesome. Chapter 4, you have some extra cash, buy a rental property. Chapter 5, you want to cash out. Sell or refinance a rental property. Chapter 6, you want to do this full time. Start a real estate business. Chapter 7, you want to scale. Partner with other investors to buy a multifamily property. And then you have underwriting opinions. You want to build, develop a ground up multifamily property. Now, if you look at chapter 1, you're tired of renting, buy a home. That's speaking to the renter that has never bought a primary residence, all the way to chapter 7, step by step through each chapter on how are you going to start partnering with other investors to buy multifamily property. That's awesome.
I just wanted to lay it out as step-by-step as process. And that's why I love my vision for this. My romantic vision is people just keep it on their desk and it follows them with a journey. It's obviously not a narrative nonfiction where people just sit down and read cover to cover, although you certainly can. I hope that it's something that as people progress through their own real estate journey, regardless of where they are, there's a relevant chapter to give them the finance, accounting, and tax nuts and bolts for how do I actually take a good-looking deal and execute it.
Why did you write a book? I mean, yeah, I know that you want to, you talk about this all the time. You want to give value to other people, but so do I, and I'm not writing a book. Like why? You also said you enjoy writing, but you went through the likely painful process to get this book published so that you could add value. What is the driving force behind that?
Part of it is that just I like writing. When I started traveling solo, 18, 19-year-old kid and hitchhiking around Europe, my mom gave me a journal. Said, you're going to be on your own, just a place to pour your thoughts. So I've journaled for a long time. And then my book about Afghanistan, that was more of an exercise in catharsis of I still had some things I needed to deal with, put pen to paper. This was somewhat a continuation where it was partially I just like having writing projects and working for myself. There are times when I'm not busy with client morale and development work, so it's like, hey, I got a spare hour, work on the book. I get angsty if I'm not doing something, and that gave me a project to keep working on. But it was also just even before I was involved with real estate full time, when I was still in the military, buddies I worked with knew that I had rental properties and I'd learned a lot of things the hard way. So I just had these conversations over and over and over with people and said, well, it may just make sense to write it down.
Yeah. That's awesome, and it's a great book. I've read it. It is you have a very high level way of thinking about things, but you know how to simplify it for people like me that need it simple, so I can just digest it and understand it. But it literally takes you from the very beginning how to buy, and there's so many different steps of information. I mean, it's a couple hundred pages, 250, 300 pages of. Again, you could digest it chapter by chapter based on where you are in your real estate investing journey. And there's so many actionable steps you can take along with the models that you have where you literally can go to the website and download information. So the spreadsheets, the analysis, things that you offer, you can go there and you can download it just right off the website. It's awesome.
You are validating my vision, so I love hearing that, and that's exactly what I was hoping to hear from people. It's like, hey, Chip, this legitimately helped. All I'm looking for.
If you had to name 2 or 3 lessons or takeaways from the book that you want someone to keep with them forever, what would that be?
Financing is king. Before you ever look at a deal, make sure the numbers work. And you get this a lot with first-time home buyers, but it's the same for investment firms buying massive multifamilies. The idea of something looks awesome, and you fall in love with it before you've actually confirmed the numbers work. So if you can't finance a deal, the deal doesn't exist. So that if nothing else, people take away, financing is king. Before looking at any property and falling in love with it, run the numbers, make sure they work. And as I talk about, I mean, quote unquote, running the numbers is different for buying your own home versus buying an apartment building. But run the numbers, whatever that modeling entails. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I'd say is don't ignore taxes. Yeah. Because it's just kind of like we have to pay them.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of tax advantages to real estate, but it's not the silver bullet. You see these, and this goes back to my frustration with these TikTok influencers saying, like, oh, pay zero taxes. Like, are there strategies that can minimize your tax bill? Absolutely. Can you use some cost segs to maybe get a big reduction in a certain year? Absolutely. It's not a silver bullet, and you can't just lie. Like you have to report your taxes accurately, and understanding how accurate bookkeeping for your rentals ties in with accurate tax reporting. So yeah, financing is king and taxes matter, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why for each chapter I talk about first the financing, so the forward-looking, how do I underwrite this deal, make sure the numbers make sense. Then I look at the accounting / bookkeeping of, I've acquired this, how do I actually account for the transactions going on with this property? And the final part of every chapter is, what are the tax considerations? And those are different for having your own primary residence versus an apartment building, but regardless of what they are, you have to know them. And the Internal Revenue Code is anything but user-friendly. So I did a ton of research trying to distill this wildly complicated Internal Revenue Code into the key items that investors at a certain step in the real estate journey need to know.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. And you can't understate taxes. I mean, there are a million tax advantages with real estate, but there's also a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't do it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, people forget depreciation or capture. The IRS is going to pinch you on the back end.
Yeah, we actually I had a guest in here yesterday that owns a cost seg company, and so we were talking about cost segregation, but also recapture as well. So, but yeah, there's so much to think about. I mean, even I had such a good tax issue on my the first couple of years investing. I bought so many distressed properties, and I lost so much money on paper that I wasn't bankable. And like, that was such a bad problem to have at the point, because I was like, also we were expanding our family, so I needed to buy a primary residence, and I was making more money than I'd ever made, and bankers were looking at my tax returns, and they were like, you are losing so much money, we could not even begin to loan anything to you. And I was like, and then they were like, you need to show a year that you actually show us that you know how to make money.
Yeah.
And so I had to like change my investing strategy for a year, and then go back to trying to lose as much money as I possibly could.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's such an interesting game. And I think I'm still learning it, but if you get it dialed in to where you have enough, income that you can write off, but it's not too crazy to where you're just bleeding money on paper, there's some good balance that you can have, with the carryovers and stuff like that.
And tax planning isn't a short-term exercise. Yep. You really have to be looking in the future. So I mentioned them briefly, but it's not really the focus of this group. I have my own personal qualified opportunity fund. So there are tremendous tax benefits, especially if you have capital gains from prior sales. But a lot of that, you have to be thinking a few years in advance to when are you going to recognize the initial gains from the contribution, and then at what point in time are you going to reap the benefits of your step up in basis. Right. But none of that's like happening in 3 weeks. You have to really be looking at the next 10 to 15 years of what is this horizon. And actually, you don't have to do that, but you're not optimizing your tax strategy if you're not looking far into the future. And
that was absolutely me the first few years of investing. I didn't know any better, and so I was just like, what do I need to do this year? What do I need to do this year? And it would hurt me the next year. And so like having some resource like this, or being able to reach out to you or a good CPA or accountant and like get that plan in place. I should say a CPA that actually does tax planning and strategy, not just your taxes.
That's right.
Right. Because that took a few years for me to find the right fit there as well. But someone who wanted to get started today in real estate investing, what would you suggest? What are some of the first actions that they should take outside of buying this book?
Understand, because I'm assuming if somebody's just getting into real estate, and I'm not a house flipper, so I'm going to speak to the path I took, the path I outlined in the book of buying a home, building a portfolio of stabilized properties. Because with hard money loans, there are different options. You can potentially get into it sooner. It's not what I know. It's not what I do. So assuming somebody's looking into the long-term income producing properties and building a portfolio of that, step one, understand, and you asked this question earlier, how are loans approved? So understand for the primary residence, I think some people say owning your home is an investment. I disagree. I think you should buy a home and not pay somebody else rent. So you're probably going to be starting with buying your own home. Understand what the debt to income test is, because those are variables that you can control. If you set your debt to income model and realize that your current debt to income ratio doesn't allow to buy a house, there are 2 ways you can affect that ratio. You can increase your income or decrease your debt. So step one, understand the role the debt to income ratio plays in getting approved to a loan. And then step two, and it really step zero, I guess, is if your credit score is in the dumps, you got to get it up. You may not like the fact that we're defined by a 3-digit number when it comes to lending, but that's the system. That's the reality. I'm not going to change that. So if your credit score is low, you either won't get a loan, or if you do, you're going to have pretty poor rates, which is going to drive up your total interest. It's going to drive up the down you're going to have to put. So fix your credit score, understand debt to income ratio, and do everything in your power to get those in a position where you're comfortable putting them on a lender's desk.
What sort of team should someone look to build if they want to acquire rental property? Like, what are some important professionals that they would need?
A reliable real estate agent who understands investment property considerations, because there can be different considerations. There certainly are different lending considerations for buying an investment versus buying a primary residence, but there are also different considerations from a what properties am I looking at. My wife and I have taken the philosophy that any single family home rentals we buy, we do kind of a soft litmus test of would we be comfortable living in those. Because A, it means you have a similar tenant profile, because if we want to live in it, somebody like us would want to live in it. And my wife doesn't like when I say this, but tongue in cheek, if everything else fails, at least you have a roof that you can move under.
Right.
So a real estate,
the same thing.
Yeah.
My wife hates it.
Yeah. I got a lot of pushback on that one. But get a real estate agent who understands what you're looking for and has the flexibility to not try to push you into something. But it's really like somebody who says, yeah, like, give me your rough specs. I'll build an automated MLS search for you. So having them, and then finding a lender who will work with you on an investment and personal basis. Because a lot of lenders aren't necessarily comfortable underwriting both a primary residence and an investment property, single family home. And that was, as I was going through this process well before my CPA commercial real estate days and just kind of fiddling my way through it, I learned that lesson. Like, this guy isn't going to write this sort of loan paperwork for me. So find a lender who you have a good relationship with and is willing to and able to underwrite both sorts of loan products.
And in my experience, that's usually a local community bank. Like, it's
Credit
not a
unions,
Wells Fargo,
local
it's
banks.
not a Bank of America. It is the credit unions, the local community banks that will truly have relationships. You can go out to lunch with them, you can grab coffee. Right. Like, they know exactly what your business is and they know exactly what your goals are, and they will help see you through those goals.
Yeah, and you want somebody where you can have enough of a relationship where, as you're working through one of those models on analyzing whether a rental property is affordable or not, you need information from a lender.
Yep.
So, hey, what are your current interest rates? What's your fee? What's your what amortization are you willing to give me? Things that you want to be able to send somebody a quick email and have a response, and then you update your model accordingly.
Right.
But you're updating it with accurate information.
I actually had a lender. I probably shouldn't even call myself out, but I had a lender. I was doing a bunch of burrs, and I was buying single families, and I had done 10 of them successfully, and then my 11th one, I was like, I want to pull out X amount of money and get some capital, and I pulled it out so much that the DSCR was at 1.0. It wasn't at 1.2 or 1.25 or whatever. It was at 1.0, and the banker was like, hey, we've had a lot of good deals together, but this doesn't even come close to passing our DSCR, test. And he said, but I'll do it for you. And he was like, I'll do this, just be smart with this investment and just know that but we have a great relationship. We've done some great deals together. I'll go ahead and do this, but don't put me in this position again. And I was like, sweet, thanks. And I ended up selling the house because I was almost like, all right, man, he's a partner and he's not super thrilled with this DSCR. Had great equity in the house, just didn't cash flow very well.
Sure.
And so anyway, that was one of the first houses I ended up selling. But it was really cool. That was a standout moment for me of what happens when you work with community lenders versus the people who don't really care about who you are or anything like that.
And you said it. You felt like he was your partner.
Right.
And that's a completely different mindset than some random number at Wells or insert national level bank here.
Right. So what's next for you?
I love my time. So I think if I haven't covered that now, so my future path after the sale of this entitled Land for 20 Townhouses, I had the initial gains and the subsequent gains. So the initial gains into the Qualified Opportunity Fund, subsequent gains that I have reinvested into a new QOF and just started construction on the project that I'm fortunate to be able to self-finance. And I like that, not being beholden to everyone else. So really my vision is I continue doing deals at my leisure. Some of them may bring in some outside investors, some not. But I just like being able to do deals at my pace where I don't feel like I have to be in the office every day, absolutely grinding to keep the pipeline going. So continuing to do my deals every couple of years. And at the same time, I love client consultation work. So I just enjoy the sitting, talking to people about real estate. So those are kind of the two parallel paths in my professional world, continuing my own development work and also doing client advising on general real estate investing strategies, but more specifically, how do the numbers work, and sitting down, talking through models, helping somebody go from this is my idea to this is how I can truly execute the idea. So that's kind of the parallel path professionally. Personally, I have a 2.5-month-year-old girl, a 6-month-old boy. I'm the commander of our local VFW. I'm married. I want to spend time doing those things. My wife and I have talked about, we love the year we took abroad. I think our kids are a little too young for international travel for our own mental health right now, but we'd love in 5 years or so, once they're a little older, to do another year overseas where we potentially enroll them in a school somewhere else. And when I'm controlling my deal flow in between deals, I can say, all right, now's the opportunity. Let's take a year to do that. And the consultation work I do for clients can do from a laptop anywhere. And that's why I turn down a lot of, hey, we're looking for a fractional CFO, we're looking for a full-time asset management accountant, because that is locking me in.
Right.
So I like to work myself out of a job. Have a client say, hey, we need you to build a pro forma that we can replicate on this sort of deal. Great project, I'll do that. And just that sort of work.
That's awesome. That's a great position to be in. And I think it's a great mindset for you and your family in your future, and you can still get financial independence and freedom and travel the world. How can people find you? How can they get in touch with you if they want?
Best bet is go to the website. So waludascapital.com. There's one of those contact us forms. I have the contact email at the footer of the website. Drop me a note to one of those. I'm on LinkedIn like most professionals these days. So if they drop me a note, unless I'm traveling the world, even if I am, I'll respond pretty quickly. Sweet.
Any final thoughts?
It's great having awesome people like this in Richmond, and thank you for including me on the show. And like I said earlier, I hope we can work together in the future. If not, coffees and beers are still good things.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure we will. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I appreciate what you're doing, the information you're putting out there. This is super valuable, this book and the modeling spreadsheets and everything that you offer for free. The website that you can go to, download this information. It's been super helpful for me, and it's been good getting to know you over the past couple of years, and keep up the good work, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yep, I appreciate the positive feedback, and you gave me that warm and fuzzy that what I want to do with this book is actually happening.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.